Hi, I'm Stuart Crowley, editor of Techerati, and I'm here with Deborah Andrews today. She's the Professor for Design for Sustainability and Circularity in the School of Engineering at London South Bank University. Deborah is going to be speaking at Data Centre World presented by Tech Show London on the 8th and 9th of March 2023 at Excel London. Welcome, Deborah.
Good morning, thank you.
And Deborah is going to be sharing with us 3 significant years of her life that has shaped her career and life for past, present and future. So Deborah, could you tell us about the first year of your life that you've chosen that has really made a difference in your life and in tech?
Okay, so in 2006, I achieved a major milestone. I got my PhD, my doctorate, the subject of which was the design and manufacture and life cycle assessment of ultra-low and zero-emission vehicles, i.e. hybrid and battery vehicles. And that was a major achievement because I had a full-time job teaching at London South Bank University, where I also set up the product design course, and I did my PhD part-time, so it was a real tour de force. But that was really the sort of starting point of the field in which I work now, vis-a-vis data centres. At that time, it was there wasn't anything like sustainable design. The closest sort of nod to this was green design and eco design, and that was a practice that was generally carried out by people who wore socks and sandals before that was fashionable and ate brown rice. So it was very much a sort of non-mainstream kind of practice. So I'd always been interested in the sort of environmental issues around design and manufacture, but obviously over time this has become much more mainstream, and I'm very happy about that. But I think in terms of sustainability, for me, it's it should be a default. It's not something, an adjunct to everything that you do. It should be something that is embedded in everything we do. And it's really encouraging to see trailblazers like Greta, for example, who is certainly shaking up an awful lot of stodgy, old politicians and what have you, and really offering a very contemporary and important alternative view to much of the status quo. So for young people, I'd say, don't think of this as something extra to what you do. Think of it as something integral to what you do. And there are many different career options as well. You might end up working in the tech sector, or engineering or design, or social side of sustainability. There is also a lot of work now looking at the criticality of materials and resources, so you could end up working in sort of supply chain, etc., or perhaps even on projects for developing countries, as well as obviously in the developed world. So there's a really broad choice of potential careers and fields that you can go into. But just to reiterate, don't see this as something as an adjunct to what you do. See it as something integral to everything that you do.
What would you say in terms of sustainability, electrical efficiency? How do things differ from 2006 to now in 2022?
Obviously, battery technology has come on leaps and bounds since 2006. I think there's still quite a lot to be said for lead-acid batteries in data centres, for example, as backup systems. They are big and heavy, but they're not going anywhere. It's a very different technology to driving an electric vehicle, for example, where you want something to be light, as well as having really good energy storage capability. So, battery technology has come on a lot. One of the other really notable things about the data center industry is the increasing efficiency of electrical and electronic equipment, in particular things like servers, cooling systems, etc. And also cooling. I think there's been quite a significant change in attitude to cooling, realizing that actually equipment will perform at higher temperatures than was previously anticipated. So that in turn has a knock-on effect regarding overall energy efficiency of data centers. So there has been a significant improvement, for want of a better word, in data center performance if you're looking at individual pieces of equipment and individual data centers, but obviously the sector has grown phenomenally. So the overall footprint hasn't decreased. But, well, yeah, it hasn't really decreased, although there are debates about the amount of energy, the percentage of generated electricity that the sector actually uses. I don't know if we'll ever find out the true figure, but yeah, performance and efficiency overall on the energy side has definitely increased. It's a big question. I have trouble sort of getting my head around the whole concept of net zero because okay, we can reduce energy consumption. Maybe we can reduce embodied carbon. You know, if you're thinking about energy use for manufacture, etc. But is that going to be at the expense of other impacts? So by changing the parameters in one area, are we going to increase environmental impact in another area? And I think that's one of the big issues. We haven't really considered the interface between energy efficiency and physical resource efficiency until now. So I think net zero could be, you know, it's something, a goal, a positive in some respects, but I think we need to take a much more holistic approach and whole systems thinking to the challenges of energy and resource efficiency together.
So we've had 2006. What is your next year?
Well, it's a sort of long year. It's overlaps 2017 to 18, basically. Yeah.
And what's significant about those 2 years for you?
So I teach at the university. I teach product design, engineering product design, and many others on other courses too. Everything is generally linked to sustainability, of course. And I had a very heavy teaching load, which was fine because I enjoy sharing knowledge and inspiring students, or at least I hope I inspire them. But in 2017, I was awarded a sabbatical, which meant that I could focus on research activities and someone else was covering my teaching. So that was really important because I had already worked on and supervised a PhD about the life cycle assessment of data centers, and realized, you know, building on that work and continuing to work with, at that point we were collaborating with HPE, and realized that there wasn't enough emphasis on physical resources. Any nod towards sustainability at the time really focused on energy efficiency. So I used my time when I was on sabbatical to build a team of partners in the Netherlands, France, and Germany mainly, and the UK, of course. And we applied for funding from the EU via Interreg Northwest Europe. And the project, this was the beginning of CEDaCI, which is building a circular economy for the data center industry. So yeah, that was pretty monumental. So that was through 2017, and we submitted an application for stage 1. That was successful. So in 2018, we developed the project in, you know, a lot more extensively. And in 2018, in October, we were awarded a grant, a really significant grant, 3.2 million euros overall value, to work on the project. So that was really life-changing, actually. And since then, the project really kicked off in 2019. And since then, we've really been focusing on showing people how you can develop a circular economy in this sector.
You said that it was life-changing. Why life-changing?
Well, it was sort of, in a way, I guess, a kind of realization of a dream. You know, when you're really passionate about a subject, and I really believe that we need to shift from just looking at energy to thinking about resources as well. And that has sort of started in my PhD when I was looking at fuel and then the physical drive chains and different materials for car bodies, etc., etc. So this was yet another opportunity to really explore this intersection between physical performance and resources. And also the project has allowed me to meet some absolutely amazing people, to work with fantastically knowledgeable people who are really excited about what we're doing. So in that sense, it was life-changing. And also because of the project, I'm now sitting here talking to you, which, yeah, it's really good. What we've done is to develop a tool, the Circular Data Center Compass, which is one of our key project outputs. And it highlights the benefits of not only extending product life, and the benefits, I mean, environmental, social, and economic. And it also, we've included a criticality indicator, which shows how critical the materials included in various servers. And that's the focus of our tool at the moment, is servers. I think what we want to do is, we're not preaching, we're not judging. What we are doing is presenting information so that end users can compare the impact of making particular decisions. Do they keep their product in use for longer by upgrading certain components, or do they retire it and either send it for recycling as business as usual, or for recycling using the CEDaCI model, which we're working with a French company who are developing technologies to reclaim more critical raw materials than are currently reclaimed. And the other thing in our tool, the element in the tool, is eco-design. So the reuse and recycling are very reactive. It's sort of dealing with what's already in circulation. The eco-design evaluator element in the tool is really guiding designers, manufacturers, etc., to produce more circular products, i.e. products that can be easily disassembled for upgrade, for reuse, remanufacture, whatever, and then ultimately for recycling at end of life. And also all of the criteria in the various parts of the tool, be it, design, product life extension, or recycling, the criteria in the tool, or the tool's been guided by criteria in the EU Circular Economy Action Plan, which some of the guidelines in there are gradually becoming policy. And there are obviously other guides and legislation and so forth, like Lot 9, etc., which relates generally to performance, but that's informed the tool as well.
What do you think is the benefit of a circular economy for both social and economic benefits for these operators? Because that's probably one question that they'll ask. What's in it for me almost?
Yeah. So the economic benefits, it is more cost effective to extend product life to either upgrade, remanufacture, or whatever, than it is to buy new equipment. You also have to pay for equipment to be disposed of, so you're being hit twice, in inverted commas. Social benefits can be quite wide-ranging. Directly, if you are extending product life, you might be selling your equipment or passing your equipment on to a repurposing or second life company who will sell equipment to users as long as it meets their requirements. And that's one of the myths that we are trying to dispel in our compass and our project, is that second life equipment isn't as good as new equipment. But also quite often second life equipment, because it's lower cost than new equipment, it means that organisations with limited income can buy appropriate data centre equipment. So there are benefits there. But socially as well, on a sort of global perspective, and there is no definitive answer to this, it sort of swings and roundabouts. A lot of the raw materials that are essential for data center equipment that are not recycled already, i.e. ferrous materials, steel, aluminium, copper, gold, etc. New raw materials, quite a lot of them are mined in terribly hazardous and socially and environmentally damaging manners. So if we increase the mass quantity of materials that we're recycling and return it to the resource chain, the value chain, then hopefully we will be able to reduce dependence on raw materials to a certain extent. Now we might think that that is really good, and in some respects it is, because gold, for instance, the impact of mining that generally is really shocking. It's very environmentally damaging, probably has one of the highest adverse impacts. However, if we stop buying new gold, does that mean that the miners are going to be out of a job? So I think we have to sort of think of, adopt a holistic approach to this and see if, for example, and this may sound very idealistic, but there's nothing wrong with that. If, for example, we stop buying gold from dubious sources, for example, is there potential then to introduce recycling plants in places where gold used to be mined? Or there's a lot of reprocessing of electrical and electronic equipment in West Africa, for example. A lot of it is shipped there and is treated in really, really awful ways. At the moment, only 17% of waste electrical and electronic equipment is formally collected and recycled. That includes obviously a lot of consumer products, and we're not saying that the data center industry, their percentage of recycling was probably a lot better than that, but an awful lot of stuff ends up there's a sort of reverse supply chain, which is very, very difficult to track and trace. So you're never really entirely sure where things end up. So we really need to develop much better legal, non-hazardous, carefully managed recycling facilities. And there is great potential to develop those in, say, developing countries, for example, to increase employment there. So economically and socially, I think it's a bit like dropping a stone into a pool. We might see immediate benefits that affect us directly, but then the ripples sort of spread out, and hopefully there are positive impacts for people working in really dire circumstances at the moment.
So are there any facts or statistics that you would give to someone to convince them that a circular economy is a valuable one to consider?
So we did a kind of thumb in the air study looking at the percentage by mass of critical raw materials within servers. And in our project, we've disassembled a lot of equipment to build inventories, to understand what components are in servers, what materials they're made from, how they're made, etc., so that we could then create life cycle sustainability assessments. And all of that data feeds into our tool. But what we found was that something like 0.02% by mass is accounted for by critical raw materials. So that by mass, that's a tiny, tiny fraction. But without those materials, data centers would not work. Electronic equipment would not work. So they are, used in tiny, tiny, tiny volumes. But their importance is absolutely essential. Their role is essential, and we really need to look after them very well. So critical raw material is basically, it's defined by the amount that is left in the Earth's crust, i.e. that hasn't yet been mined, the amount that is currently being recycled and returned to the resource chain or system circle, the geopolitical location of the materials, because that has a massive impact on availability. I've already mentioned the fact that, let's say China, for example, are ring-fencing reserves and not exporting raw materials. But many raw materials like coltan, which is the ore from which tantalum comes, that is the prime reserves are in Central Africa, in the Congo, and the mining processes are shocking. The whole system is run by sort of warlords and gangs rather than by legitimate companies. So there's a lot of instability, and I think if we don't start paying more attention to our critical raw materials, then supply chain could be interrupted, which would have a really adverse effect on everything that we do. We're moaning at the moment about the fact that we might not have electricity 24 hours a day. But this is, that's the sort of tip of the iceberg, really. Think how reliant we are on the services that data center supply, or, you know, if you break your phone and you're unable to buy a new one or a new laptop, what are we going to do? You know, we're addicted to digital technology and services, so we need to look after resources.
Well, absolutely. I think if it wasn't for data centers and the technology, the critical technology that you've mentioned, we wouldn't even be having this interview or be able to put this out and to share just how important having this on top of mind is. What would be your final significant year that you feel has really made a difference to your life, your career, and also why we're talking today, which is that you'll be speaking at Data Center World at Tech Show London in 2023. So what would be your final significant year?
My final year is 2020, which is very close to 2018. But that was a really exciting year. So I mentioned that I teach in the university. I also carry out research activities and enterprise activities, helping, for example, startups to develop sustainable products and processes. But in terms of 2020, in addition to that sort of academic and business-focused work, I also received an award, which I was very proud of, and it was a complete surprise. It was the Staff Award for Sustainability in Action, and it was the first time that the university had allowed or presented this award. So basically, you know, your peers vote for you, nominate you, and vote for you. So I was really proud to get that. But I'd been a member of the university's Sustainable Development Group and Sustainability Steering Group for many years. So that was really, rather than just looking at teaching or business and research and so forth, that was really focusing on activities and actions, etc., across the university. So the steering group, we were a bit of a rebel bunch originally. And it was great because the group was comprised of academic staff, facilities managers, catering staff, you know, lots of different individuals from different backgrounds. And our mission was to really improve the sustainability, the profile across the university. So it included things like recruiting sustainability managers, reducing energy consumption, even simple things like changing to LED lighting and so forth, and making sure that the recycling went to a legitimate place, encouraging reuse of stuff, helping students to engage in activities as well that affected them directly. So maybe, you know, things in halls of residence about looking at cooking or whatever. So yeah, it was a really big surprise, and I was ever so proud to win that. And I mean, I didn't do it, you know, I don't sort of engage in those activities because I want to be recognised for them. I engage in them because I think they're really, really important. And you meet really interesting people from different disciplines and have quite a lot of fun doing this too.
It's really interesting how, you know, you kind of said rebelliously banding together for a cause of sustainability. Perhaps that is something that could be related to data center operators and businesses, tech businesses, where within their organization, there's a lot of questions of how do we advocate for sustainability? How do we push it forward? And perhaps they can take inspiration from what you and many people from many different backgrounds did in that situation. Do you think that could be something that could be translated to another business, for example?
I think so. I think one of the sort of major changes over the past sort of 15 years or so, there's been a shift from, you know, I mentioned originally sustainability being the sort of realm of sandal and sock wearing, brown rice eating individuals, but this has become much more mainstream, and there's obviously a lot more policy. So we've got sticks and carrots, policy, legislation, etc., which is encouraging and driving sustainability. I think it's a bit sad that organisations sort of engage simply because they have to. I'd like to hope that they're a bit more philanthropic, you know, and engage because they want to as well. But I think businesses are, be they in the data center sector or, you know, beyond, are much, much more conscious of the issues around sustainability now. And they can be very rewarding. One of our partners, they're very active on LinkedIn and, great at sending posts, etc. And so I noticed that the other day, they, as part of their sort of CSR or ESG, whatever you wish to call it, they had organised a repair cafe for employees in the business to take along stuff that wasn't working anymore and to fix it. And okay, there was some electrical and electronic products, but there were also things like toys, which was great. And I think things like that, there's something, it is quite touchy-feely, it's sort of emotionally, it definitely taps into emotions as well as logic, heart and head. But things like that, events like that are really good because it's a great opportunity to meet and talk to people who you wouldn't necessarily talk to in your day-to-day life as well. And that can help to sort of company ethos and so forth. But I think, it would be great. From my experience at the moment, there are, in the data center industry, there are people who don't get what we want, what we're trying to do, and people who do. And I really hope that, the people who don't get it yet, the light goes on, and they get what we're trying to do, not just because they have to conform to legislation, but because they want to and see the benefits.
You mentioned people banding together, getting to meet other people as well, and how important that is. And you've been to many data center events of your own, and also we have our Data Center World coming up.
Yeah.
Do you feel as though those are important places for that collaboration as well? And
absolutely, absolutely. And I think we all just about survived, Zoom, Teams, etc. Through the pandemic. But actually meeting people in person, this either at formal presentations, being able to ask questions, etc. But networking events afterwards or, during, before are incredibly important. You find out things that you would never in a million years find out from simply talking to people on Zoom or Teams. So I think live events like Data Center World are absolutely essential for extending knowledge, growing business, improving practice, etc. Just that odd little piece of, conversation, spontaneous conversation can initiate some great thoughts and actions.
That's awesome. Do you feel like you've had those experiences yourself?
Very definitely. Yeah, very definitely. Always meet people and extend our network and engage people. I mean, one of I mentioned our Circular Data Center Compass, this is CEDaCI digital tool, but one of the other things, a key output, is training SMEs and other operators, training in the gentlest sense of the word, informing them about the circular economy and then how to use the tool. So one of the real benefits of attending events like Data Center World is we're actually able to meet people in person, talk to them, get them to engage, and then to join our training sessions and hopefully to spread the word and begin to change practice. Yeah.
Thinking towards the future now, what would be your grandest hope for the industry with regard to sustainability and circularity?
That all businesses would become circular voluntarily. Carrots rather than sticks. Obviously the sector is growing at a rapid rate. It's going to continue to grow. Technology is changing and so forth. But in line with that, we really do need to have really robust circular practices, which are, apart from reuse, or extending product life, finally recycling stuff when it's no longer technically or economically feasible to use it, changing the design of stuff to facilitate all of that. It's absolutely essential. So I'd hope that, that the things that we are advocating and actually demonstrating through the CEDaCI project, because that's the other key thing, is that through our activities, we are showing how feasible all of these practices are. Hopefully that, other companies will begin to adopt them. So looking forwards, we've really got to become more circular to ensure that the data center industry can continue to evolve and grow and support everything that we do now and will be doing in the future.
Data Center World will be taking place on the 8th of 9th of March 2023. On the 8th of March, we have International Women's Day, very well timed. And thinking about your experience in the industry as a woman, how do you feel like that has changed? Let's have a look back to your first year in 2006, right up until now in 2022, moving into 2023. What's that experience been like?
I think this sector is very much like other tech sectors in as much as it's comparative, although it's not totally easy, it's comparatively easy to encourage female students to study technical subjects at university, although we've still got a long way to go to make courses 50-50. The challenge is converting female graduates with good knowledge, etc., into employees. And somehow we need to build confidence and so forth in the sector. But that cuts across, all, whether it's engineering, product design, or whatever. I would say the biggest changes that I've noticed. There are more women now working in the sector, but they tend to be focused towards sustainability, rather than being data center managers. Although I do work with a consultancy where I'd say the technical experts are predominantly female. So that there are pockets in the sector of positive female role models, but it doesn't cut across the sector. But it's encouraging that there are more women because of the increase in awareness of sustainability and so forth. So we could almost argue that women are driving sustainability, perhaps. But I think we've got in schools and universities and so forth, we've got an awful lot of work to do to encourage female students initially, and then ensure that they do progress after graduation into the professions. Yeah.
And so finally, thinking towards, let's jump towards the future now. 2023, you're at Data Center World. People are going to get their free tickets. What would you say to people thinking about coming to Data Center World, to your session? What would you say to them to encourage them to come along?
Come along and see what you don't know. Find out what you don't know and what you could know. Come and see what we're doing. Enjoy yourselves. Meet people, but really come and find out what you don't know. If you're worried about the circular economy, and I think one of the big challenges is it seems to be so overwhelming because there are so many contingent parts. And one of the things that we have tried to do in the CEDaCI project is to show how a whole systems approach to the challenge can actually, it is realisable, and it can encourage change. So I'd say, people are perhaps a bit sceptical about it because they see it as being unworkable because of the scale and complexity. Just come along and see what we're doing, and even if you're not terribly happy with what we say, at least you're going to find out something that you didn't know. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Deborah. And you can get your free ticket now to Data Center World presented by Techerati London, and also join us on the 8th and 9th of March 2023 at Excel London. You won't want to miss Deborah's session and all the great things that we have coming up for you. Thank you.